I've been told that this shirt is distracting on camera. Probably my, massive shoulders, not the checkered pattern that looks weird on camera. Welcome back to another LSAT game. So I want to do something I haven't done in a while. I'm going to take a look at a particular game. I'm actually jumping ahead to PrepTest 67. So this is the third game. No, this is the second game from PrepTest 67. I think it's October 2012, and no, I'm not going to look that up. And I want to do a full explainer on the process. If you have an approach that works for you to the logic games, then probably you're not watching this video. But presuming you have some difficulty knowing what to do and when for logic games, this is the video for you. I'm going to walk through first of all how we construct a diagram where we can keep track of information throughout the game. I'm going to walk through how we symbolize the clues or whatever conditions they give us so that we can look back to those symbols consistently rather than have to reread the conditions over and over again. I'm going to look at the best order in which to answer the question, and then of course we will actually answer the questions. Logic games are unique among standardized tests. Yeah, they're kind of mathy, and they do take that place on the LSAT where if you know how to approach the question, within reason, you should never get a question wrong. But even so, they're not math, and they're not quite like anything on any other standardized test. So it totally makes sense to be a little unclear on the best approach to logic games. But let's go ahead and get into it. Let's take a look here. Questions 6 through 12. Again, PrepTest 67, second game. Each of exactly 7 professors, Powell, Shihab, Taylor, Vaughn, Wood, Young, and Zabel, gives exactly one guest lecture in a literary theory course. And already I'm noticing, all right, we've got 7 professors, and they all give exactly one guest lecture. So this is what we call a one-to-one game. And we can see in the next sentence, the lectures are ordered from 1st through 7th. This is specifically what we call a one-to-one order game. Order games are very common on the LSAT, and so this is a type of game that you definitely want to master. Fortunately, one-to-one order games tend to be the easiest types of games to work on the LSAT. Let's start with a diagram where we can keep track of our work. In this case, we've got 7 spaces, so let's go ahead and count out 1, 2, 3, and 7. I may need to move that over just a little bit. And in this case, we just want basically a table where we can keep track of who goes in what order for any given question. A lot of charts and diagrams end up looking like this on the LSAT. For an order diagram, this is particularly common. Once we have our diagram, we want to jump into the clues. But again, we don't want to have to reread the clues over and over, and so we're going to symbolize each clue in a way that we can easily look back at that symbol and remember what it meant. The first clue says Powell lectures before Wood. So again, for an order game, this is a classic ordering clue. P ... W is how I would symbolize this. This reminds me P always has to go before W. There will be some deductions we get from this in a moment, but for now I'm just going to symbolize P ... W. Taylor lectures before Shihab, so T ... S. Vaughn lectures before Zabel, so V ... Z. Shihab is no later than third. So there are a couple things we could do with this. Probably in this case, the easiest thing is just to go right to the diagram and say, well, that means S can't go 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th. Young is not 7th, so same thing, right on the diagram. Young can't go 7th. And Powell lectures first if, but only if, Young lectures before Vaughn. So this is a conditional clue, but the if, but only if part is a little bit weird. Normally with a conditional clue, order matters. If the first thing is satisfied, then the second thing will happen. If I'm born in Dallas, then you know that I'm born in Texas. But just telling you that I'm born in Texas doesn't tell you that I'm born in Dallas. Conditional clues are normally directional. If and only if clues, or in this case if but only if, on the other hand, do go both directions. If I tell you something like I was born in Texas if and only if I was born in Dallas, not only would you know that if I was born in Texas, that means I was born in Dallas, you would also know that if I was born in Dallas, that must mean that I'm born in Texas. If and only if goes both directions. So in this case, we would want to symbolize something like P is first, if and only if. So going both directions, Young lectures before Vaughn. This also means that if Young is not before Vaughn, then P cannot go first, And again, in this particular case, it does go both directions. If P is not first, we know that Young is not before Vaughn. In this case, since nobody is a tie, everybody lectures in a particular order, we could even say if V is before Y, then we can say P is not going to be first, because that's what it means to say Young is not before Vaughn. Once you have all your clues symbolized, you want to shift into deduction mode. What can we figure out from these clues? Typically, we want to figure out things that are always true or that can never be true. On the LSAT, it's usually easier to figure out things that can't be true than things that do have to happen every single time. For example, P dot 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 W. Well, if P is always before W, there's somewhere on this diagram P can never go last. And so we would say P does not go last. Similarly, there's somewhere on the diagram W can never go. If W has to follow P, W never goes first. These are very typical deductions anytime you have an ordering clue like this. So you want to make sure you look for these deductions when you see these ordering clues. In the same way, T can never go last. And I'm starting to get a sense that only a few elements are going to be able to go last. S cannot go first. Z also cannot go first. V has to come before Z, which means that V cannot go last. And I can tell that I have a 50-50. There are only two elements left right now that could go last. I actually forgot to write down my elements earlier. That's also something you want to do. P, S, T, V, W, Y, and Z. And of those, P, S, T, V, Y are no good. So either W or Z is going to have to go last. Now for this other clue, P is first if and only if Y is before V. I don't have any reason right now to suspect that Y has to be before V or vice versa. You can see that they're not involved in any of these ordering clues together. And although P could go first, there's no special reason right now that P has to go first. So other than what we've already come up with for the conditional statements, I don't think I can turn that into a deduction. At this point, with as many of my deductions as I can come up with, and maybe this is all of them, maybe not, I don't know, I'm going to look for a question like number 6. You can think of this as a pick a clue question. Which of the following could be the order in which the professors lecture from first to last? So each one of these answer choices is supposed to be a possible ordering. What we're going to do is simply pick one of our clues and look for an answer choice that violates that clue. If we can find one, we eliminate that answer choice. So in this particular case, the first clue says Powell lectures before Wood. Well, do we ever see an answer choice where Powell is not before Wood? And the answer is yes, right there on C. You can see Wood and then Powell. That's no good. Cross off C. Taylor lectures before Shabab. Do we ever see an answer choice that violates that arrangement? And I don't think the answer is yes. In all the answers I see, T is before S, so I think we're good there. Vaughn lectures before Zabel. Again, as I look at the answers, I'm seeing Vaughn before Zabel every time, so I don't think we can get rid of any choices based on that clue. Shihab is no later than third. All right, well, A is no good because Shihab is fourth, but then B, D, or E all look fine. Young is not seventh. We can go ahead and cross off answer choice D. And notice we've got two choices left and one remaining clue. That's pretty typical. Powell lectures first if and only if Young lectures before Vaughn. Well, notice Young is before Vaughn on answer choice E, but Powell is not first. And again, if this were a typical conditional clue, that wouldn't matter. But because it's a bidirectional conditional clue, that does matter. We can cross off E and we can circle answer choice B. Once you've answered any kind of pick a clue style question, and if there's going to be one, it's usually the first question of the game, you want to look for more specific questions. These are questions that begin with if or suppose, and in a way they give you new information about the game. But the information they give you only applies to that particular question. It doesn't mean we can't use those scenarios in the future. We will use those as possibilities for our more general questions, but it does mean that we can't assume just because number 9 says if Shihab lectures second, that from now on Shihab always lectures second. That only applies for sure to number 9. But let's go ahead and set that up. S is second, Z is fourth. Let's see what happens when we do that. So we want to look for clues that involve these elements. For example, T dot 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 S. T always goes before S. So telling us that S is second is another way of telling us T is first. Z was that 50-50 element along with W that could have gone last. Since Z is fourth in this case, W has to be last. You'll also notice, of course, Powell is not first right now, and so Y can't be before V. Instead, V has to be before Y. There are several different ways that could work out though. You could have, oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm ahead of myself. I should have looked. V dot 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 Z. V has to go before Z, so actually I know where V goes. Y necessarily has to follow, but there's no other clue that involves Y than the conditional clue. So at this point, I think we can set up another 50-50. It's either Y in 5 and P in 6, or the other way around, P in 5 and Y in 6. Number 9 wanted to know which of the following could be true. Powell lectures 6th. Well, we just said that, right? And here's one of the key skills you want to learn with the LSAT. If you are doing this process properly, and a question asks what could be true, and it was a possibility on your diagram, that's the answer. It's time to move on. I don't need to check B, C, D, or E, though if I did check them, I should find something wrong with each of them. On a could be true, the answer that could be true is the right answer, and therefore I don't need to check all 5 answer choices. This is one of the big skills that's going to help with your pacing. Students can waste a lot of time looking at answer choices that we really shouldn't be checking because we're worried whether or not we were actually correct about a could be true. Better to master the process and stop worrying about whether you were actually correct, though. All right, number 11 is our next specific question. If Young lectures 4th and Taylor lectures 1st, which of the following must be true? Now, this is a little bit different. We're looking for what must be true now, not just what is a possibility. Y is 4th, Taylor is 1st. Let's go ahead and put that down. Well, we know right now that S goes sometime after T, and of course can't go any later than 3rd, so S is either 2nd or 3rd. We could set up both of those possibilities and just see what happens, see what makes a difference. Powell is not 1st right now, so V has to go in front of Y. Okay, that's interesting. That means V is going to have to occupy this other slot along with S. So that actually sets up another 50-50 for us. It looks to me like either W or Z could still go last here. Of course, P is before W. Yeah, it looks to me at this point that as long as P doesn't go last, we can kind of do anything we want in this scenario. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the questions. They asked about a must be true. I didn't figure out another element that for sure has to go somewhere, so that's mildly concerning. But as I look at the choices, I can see, okay, Powell lectures no earlier than 6th. Well, no, he could have gone 5th according to what we figured out. Shahab lectures 2nd. That was a possibility, but not a must be true. Vaughn lectures no later than 3rd. Yes, that had to be true. We figured out Vaughn was either 2nd or 3rd, but definitely no later than 3rd. All right, number 12. If Z lectures 4th, which of the following could be true? Another could be true. All right, so let's put Z 4th. Of course, Z is one of our two 50-50 elements, so W would have to go 7th. We also know V goes sometime before Z, so V is somewhere in this 1, 2, 3 range. We also know S is always up there, and T is before S. So actually, T, V, and S have to go in some order, 1, 2, and 3. That means that only Y and P are left over for 5 and 6, though I don't think we can figure out which one goes where for sure. But we can set up yet another 50-50, just like we did on number 9. So again, a lot of these scenarios are working out pretty similarly so far. As far as the answers, what could be true? Powell goes 2nd. Nope, there was no room up there for Powell. Powell goes 7th. I don't think Powell can ever go 7th, so it's not going to be B. Wood lectures 3rd. There was no room for Wood. Young lectures 2nd. No room for Young, but Young lectures 6th. Yes. And again, on a could be true, if I've crossed off A, B, C, and D for good reasons, E is the right answer. Again, another good pacing habit to be in is once you have found that A, B, C, and D don't work on a could be true, circle E. It must be the possibility. We've got no more specific questions here, but we do have 3 questions that begin with which. These are questions that usually ask about the game as a whole. One reason we want to keep a diagram with all of our work is that we can now use all of these as possibilities for these general questions. There's no guarantee that these scenarios will come up, but if they're asking us what's a could be true, and we've seen something in our scenarios already, well great, we can pick that answer and move on. Or if they're asking us what must be false, and we've seen something happen already, we can eliminate that answer choice. For example, number 7, which one of the following could lecture first? Well, in our scenarios, we saw T as a possibility for first several times, but there was also V on number 12 who could have gone first. We know W, S, and Z are for sure out, so W, S, and Z we can eliminate, but again, based on what we've already seen, number 7 should be answer choice B. Interestingly, this means that there must be some reason Young actually can't ever lecture first. I presume it ends up being related to this PYV clue, but let's just go ahead and add that to our deductions if we need for some future question. We only have 2 more general questions, but it's just a good habit to be in. There must be some reason that Y can never go first here. Number 8, which one of the following cannot give the second lecture? Well, again, who have we already already seen second. S, V, and possibly T all could have gone second. So B, C, and D we can eliminate from number 8 right away. And then between P and W, who can't go second? Well, P and W have typically ended up toward the end of the game, along with Y kind of in this 5, 6, 7 area. But probably the best thing to do at this point is just try out P and try out W and see if there's something that happens when we put them second that would make it impossible. It's going to be easier to do that with W, because if we know where W is, we know Z has to go last right away. And of course, if W is going second, P has to go first, because P always goes in front of W. S would have to be third in that scenario, because S can never go any later than third. And right now we have V, Y, and T left over, but you can see the problem. T is supposed to be somewhere in front of S. That's not possible right now. There's no room for T. And so that must mean that in fact W cannot go second. And so I can circle answer choice E. One more question here, number 10. Which one of the following cannot be the guest lecture that Vaughn gives? So where can Vaughn never go? Well, we had Vaughn can't go 7th for sure. Was that a choice? Yes, it is. Circle answer choice E for number 10. All right, there you have it. Now the most fun part. Let's see if we did it correctly. We've got B, B, E, A, E, C, E. B, B, E, A, E, C, E. I don't like that rhythm. B, B, E, A, E, C, E. B, B, E, A, E, C, E. B, B, E, A, E, C, E. Yes, we did it. Now, if you're taking the LSAT for real, obviously you can't check your work right after the game. And when you're doing full sections, it's good not to be in the habit of immediately checking your work. You definitely don't want to be checking your work every single time you do a question. If you're practicing though, and you check your work and you see you got something wrong, you need to go back to your diagram and figure out why. Did we misinterpret a clue? Is it something that affected other questions, or was it something that only happened on that one question? As we do several practice games, we might start to notice, hey, is there a particular kind of clue that gives me trouble and that I typically mess up? Or maybe there's even a particular kind of game that gives me trouble. And that's going to guide my practice moving forward. That's going to let me know what I need to be spending extra time on. But there you have it. That's the rough process. That is what your work should look like once you get to the end of one of these games. You want some kind of diagram. You want those clues symbolized. You want to spend time coming up with deductions. You want to make sure you're answering the questions in the most efficient way possible. That's going to be any kind of pick a clue style question, your specific questions, your general questions. And then sometimes there are what we call complex questions. These are questions that actually change the rules of the game. This particular game didn't have any, but those you would always save for last. I hope that was helpful for you. I try to post these games once or twice a week. At one time I was going to do, I don't know, more games, but I'm trying to get these in once or twice a week. If there's a game you would like to see me work, please put it in the comments down below. I'm happy to move it up in the order. There's a playlist around here that you can click on to see the other games that I've worked. I think this is the 25th video in this series, and by the time you watch this, there will probably be more. Good luck with your LSAT prep, and I will see you next time.